All right, so let's go ahead and take our first question, which comes from David, and it says, Peter and Sylvan, thank you for your efforts on our behalf, which have added significant value to our investment in the ERHC in the last couple of years. Regarding the rights offering, and this is a four-part question. 1, does the company have a target amount of funds to raise? 2, does the company have a target date for the rights offering? 3, does the company intend to offer both rights and warrants in this offering? And finally, 4, is the rights offering a one-off, or will there be others in tandem with future, and he uses the term pipes, and I'm not sure what that term refers to. So if you guys know, maybe you can help us out and educate us.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. First of all, as for target amounts, yes, we do have definite target amounts. We are looking at exploration programs in each of these countries that will cost in the first year or two between $10 and $20 million each. But we don't need to start to raise all that money at once, and that means that we can do a series of rights, which I think answers one of the other questions he asks. We can start with one which tests the waters. The terms will, of course, be determined depending on authorizations that are received or not at the annual shareholders meeting, as Sylvan has said. After that, the terms of a rights issue will be determined with the advisors and announced very quickly. The target date is as soon as the shareholders meeting is concluded, and if it is concluded successfully with authorizations that are sought, a rights offering will be announced in a matter of days after that meeting is concluded. Whether warrants will be included in these rights remains to be seen, but that, of course, will be announced with the terms of the rights that will be announced if we receive the requisite authorizations of the shareholders that we want. I think that covers the question, Dan.
Very good, Peter. I'm going to introduce Anthony back into the discussion because he has some instructions for queuing up to ask questions.
Thank you. The floor is now open for questions. If you do have a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. If you're using a speakerphone, we ask that while posing your question, you pick up your handset to provide favorable sound quality. Anytime your question has been answered, you can remove yourself from the queue by pressing 1. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question or comment, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time.
Another question has been submitted via email from Joseph Rentko. Thanks, Joseph, for shooting this to us. With all these new rights, plus the JDZ and EEZ, why are you forced to raise capital with the share price at such a low level? In other words, why isn't the market seeing all the shareholder value that you repeatedly refer to?
I'm going to call on Mr. W in a bit to give elaboration on that question. But I'd just like to say, to start with, that while it is our policy not to comment on share price, we think that E&P companies are unique and that ERHC is still seeing the effects of the results of the joint development zone, which were not as interesting or as exciting as expected. And this is normal with E&P companies. I think you can track a trend with other companies, both our contemporary peers and historically. If you have such a high-profile exploration program, which raises expectations in the market, and for reasons, of course, that the company can't control, reasons to do entirely with nature, and the absence yet of technologies that can determine before you drill whether there's oil in the ground. If the exploration program does not succeed as expected, then the company faces a backlash from the market, really. And I think that ERHC is still experiencing the effects of that. The work we're trying to do now, and which we're determined to accomplish, is to negatize that experience and to take us back to where we think we belong. Sylvan?
Yes. Thank you, Peter. Like Peter has already stated, a part of the reasons for us to raise this fund is to build up some of these assets, particularly Chad, Kenya, and possibly EEZ, in order to make them attractive for potential farming partners. And the ERHC available option and funding strategy that is expected to help us raise this fund probably includes the right issuance to existing shareholders. There may be some direct placement to new shareholders or strategic investors. And we will also have a recourse to debt instruments if they are available, but we have emphasized that debt financing is hardly available on terms that will be favorable to the company. So it is important that we raise these funds to build up these assets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvan. Dan, next question.
And I understand Anthony has a couple of callers in queue, so we'll go to the phoned-in questions.
Certainly. Our next question comes from Steve Ash, a private investor. May I ask your question?
Mr. Ntefe, since Emeka Offer and or Chrome have been involved with ERHC, has ERHC ever been approached by a company or individual with a buy-in or buyout offer? And if so, what were the terms, please?
The answer to your question is no. It's that simple. That's the answer to your question, no. We've not been approached with a buy-in offer.
Okay, and I guess we'll move on to our next question, and it is from Dennis Shaker, another private investor. You may ask your question.
Yes, with a single very large shareholder like ERHC currently has, the success of a rights offering will be very dependent on whether that person participates or does not. I was just wondering if you have any sort of commitment from that shareholder on whether he is going to participate in the rights offering, because I think that would also influence about other shareholders about whether they want to participate or not also.
Yes, at the moment, of course, you know that we are bound by Regulation FD, which means we disclose to all our shareholders at the same time. It is true that we have a significant shareholder, but in terms of regulations and in the long run, he is another shareholder, so we will have to disclose to that shareholder or that set of shareholders at the same time as we disclose to other shareholders. We, however, we anticipate that as long as the essence of what we're trying to do is properly conveyed, and that is that it is to boost shareholder value, particularly for someone who holds such a significant proportion of our assets, that will have support on the plans that we have. And we'll look to see that support not just from that shareholder or that set of shareholders, but from all our shareholders, because what we're trying to do here is to boost shareholder value, secure the future of this company, and make it a much bigger and much more credible company than it already is.
Okay, well, I just want to know if there's any chance that we'll get a commitment from him prior to the time that we have to make a decision on whether we want to accept the rights offering or not. Is that a possibility, or is that something you have thought about at all?
Yes, I would not be truthful to you if I said we hadn't thought about it. Of course, we factored that into our plans. But the way a right issue works, after it is announced, there's a period. Typically, I'm not saying because the terms of this have not been determined with finality. Typically, something like 90 days. And within that time, we expect to see, some commitment from some of our more significant shareholders. As long as, like I've said, we do the right things by convincing them and everyone else of the propriety and necessity of what we're trying to do.
Very good. We have a couple of other questions coming in via email. And, Anthony, do you want to repeat your instructions on how to ask a question via the phone?
Absolutely. You may submit your question on the phone by simply pressing star 1 on your telephone keypad. Again, you may press star 1 on your telephone keypad to ask a question. Thank you.
An investor, David, has a couple of questions here. One is why the $3 billion number for the new authorization? It seems rather high, he says. And he also asks, will the company illustrate examples of how the newly authorized shares could be used for acquisitions or strategic alliances? The more specific, the better.
Yes, I'm going to turn that question over to Sylvan, but I'll also encourage our shareholders to watch out for information leading up to the general meeting, and also, as much as possible, to please attend the general meeting because we intend to present elaborately on these companies' work programs and what they will entail in Kenya, Chad, and the EEZ. Sylvan, the shareholder says why the $3 billion number for the new authorized share capital of ERHC?
Why the $3 billion? We decided on the $3 billion to give the company and the board of directors enough flexibility. Not the entire $3 billion is going to be used at this time, but to give us flexibility in fundraising efforts. That's a very simple answer to that. Why the $3 billion? So that we don't have to go back and ask for additional meeting to get another authorization. We wanted to do this at one time for flexibility purposes. Thank you, Peter.